Hey everyone, Danielle Cotterman here with the 21 News social media team. And a hot topic right now, everyone seems to have an opinion on, is the idea of making daylight saving time permanent. The idea unanimously approved by the Senate, now heading to the House. And while many of us may love the idea of that extra hour in the evening on those cold winter months, there's always more to consider. Here to sort it all out for us is Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Danielle, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
So kind of give us the ins and outs of what this might really look like if this happens.
Well, one of the most important things to point out is daylight saving is kind of a misnomer. We're not actually saving any daylight either way. We're just kind of shifting the sunrise and sunset times forward and backward whenever we change the clocks. And if we make daylight saving permanent, yeah, we're not going to change the clocks anymore, but we're also not technically saving any time. The amount of daylight we have per day is going to stay the same depending on the time of the year.
And you had mentioned that if we do, kind of slide it there in the winter, the idea of the mornings, the sun would not rise until what time are you saying?
Well, during the darkest days of the year in mid to late December and even into early January, in our part of the Eastern time zone, the sunrise would not be until almost 10 minutes until 9 a.m. Right now, our latest sunrises tend to be around 7:50 to 7:55, just depending on the exact day of the year. But yeah, from mid-December through early January, very, very dark mornings. It wouldn't even start to get light outside until after 8 a.m. and the technical sunrise would be at almost 9 a.m.
So many people all ready to work before the sun even rises. But then you were sharing with me some interesting insight just on whether or not you think people might use that extra hour in the evenings or not, especially in the dead of winter.
Yeah, in the dead of winter, we're used to sunsets at about 4:45 to 4:50 or so, again, mostly in December and early in January. If we go to permanent daylight saving, those late or early sunsets would shift forward an hour, so it wouldn't get completely dark outside until almost 6 o'clock during early to mid-winter. And while that's kind of appealing, at the same time, it's not like summer where you could take advantage necessarily of that extra daylight by playing golf a little longer, maybe your softball league and that sort of thing. In the dead of winter, what are you doing outside at 5:15 p.m.? Usually not much. It might be more of a psychological advantage. A lot of kind of 9 to 5 kind of employees and workers don't like getting out of work at 5 p.m. and it's already dark outside, and maybe walking outside and finally seeing a little bit of sunlight still in the middle of December and late December. That'd be a psychological benefit, but from a practical benefit, I wouldn't imagine a lot of people would put that extra hour of daylight at the end of the day to much use at the end of December.
Mm-hmm. Now let's continue to kind of explore this idea. So that's the situation in the winter, but then in the summer, when as things are now, we see those 9 p.m. sunsets, we would be seeing like an 8 p.m. sunset instead. Is that correct?
Well, actually, if we stick to year-round daylight saving, our summer would be the same as it is now because we observe daylight saving in the summer now. If we went to year-round standard time, then our sunsets in the summertime would be an hour earlier than we're kind of used to. We're used to those 9 p.m. sunsets now. It would be closer to 8 if we went to year-round standard time, but as the legislation stands now, which may become law, this would be permanent daylight saving. So our summers really wouldn't change much from what we're used to now. It'd be more of a big change as we get into the winter season.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we always hear people grunt and groan about the idea of changing the clock back. And I know myself as a new mother, I've never cared as much as I care now when I've got a little one that I'm trying to manage a sleeping schedule for. But talk to me a little bit about, this isn't the first time that we've actually seen headway made as far as legislation goes. So what have we had in the past?
Yeah, in fact, it's been almost 50 years, but in the mid-70s, I believe it was 1974, we actually did go to year-round daylight saving in most of the US. And as it turns out, people hated it. The policy was reversed pretty quickly because people did not like those very late sunrises in the dead of winter where it wasn't getting light outside until 8:30 or 9 a.m. And, we're in the Eastern time zone, Eastern Ohio and Western PA, and we're kind of right in the middle of that Eastern time zone. On the fringes of the time zones, the situation becomes even more extreme, and especially in some northern latitudes up near the US-Canadian border and say like northern Michigan and Minnesota, places like that. They're going to have sunrises in, again, mid to late December, early January, that will be after 9 a.m. It'll be even more extreme up there. So a lot of people, I think, won't be necessarily all that enthused with it if the reaction is similar to what we had back in the mid 70s.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes here, we live in our own little bubble and we think about the impact in Ohio, but we forget that this is countrywide, and the impact is much broader than just our little corner of the universe.
Yes, indeed. My preference personally would be, if we're going to make a change, go to year-round standard time. That would mean earlier sunsets in the summer, and it gets dark outside at 8 instead of 9. And that's not going to make some people happy, but I think that would be preferable to these really late, unnaturally late sunrises in the middle of the winter season. So I personally don't have a problem changing the clocks twice a year. It's a minor inconvenience. For some, it's more of an inconvenience than others, certainly. For me, it's not that big of a deal. But if we were going to make a change, yes, standard time I think is the way to go. But it looks like the way we're going to go is permanent daylight saving.
Absolutely. So much to think about and consider. And really, just to wrap your mind around it, because this is something that we've done for so long. It's interesting to think about and explore all those different angles. So thank you so much for joining me.
As you mentioned, there's a lot of angles to this. It's a very interesting subject. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So now it heads to the House. Ultimately, it would still need to be signed into law by the president. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us. Always a wealth of information. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.